Ever wondered what life was like for our earliest ancestors, millions of years ago? Picture a world teeming with colossal beasts and formidable predators. A world without spears, without bows, without even the simplest stone tools. How on earth did these early hominins, relatively small and defenseless, manage to survive and eventually thrive? It's a story of incredible ingenuity, social strength, and a deep understanding of their environment. So let's travel back in time and uncover the survival secrets of prehistoric humans, long before the first weapon was ever crafted. Our story begins with hominins like Australopithecus, who lived millions of years before Homo habilis, the handy man, started making the first crude tools. These early humans weren't at the top of the food chain. In fact, they were often on the menu. So what was their number one survival strategy? Avoidance. It sounds simple, but it was a masterclass in risk management. They became experts at reading their environment. They knew which times of day the big predators were most active and made sure to be somewhere safe. They understood which watering holes were ambush hotspots and which were relatively secure. Survival wasn't about fighting. It was about not having to fight in the first place. Their senses were their primary defense system, constantly scanning, listening, and smelling for any sign of danger. They were the ultimate survival scouts. Another crucial survival tactic was using the landscape itself as a fortress. Trees were the original high-rise apartments. Our early ancestors, with their ape-like climbing abilities, could quickly scramble up a tree to escape a saber-toothed cat or a pack of giant hyenas. Trees provided a safe place to rest, sleep, and observe the world below. Caves and rock shelters were also prime real estate. These natural fortresses offered protection from the elements and a defensible position against predators. Finding and securing these safe havens was a daily priority. It wasn't just about finding shelter for the night. It was about establishing a home base from which they could safely venture out and return. Their real estate choices were a matter of life and death. So if they weren't hunting big game, what were they eating? The answer lies in scavenging and foraging. Our ancestors were opportunistic eaters. They were masters of finding food that didn't fight back. Their diet was likely rich in plants, fruits, nuts, roots, and insects. They knew their local flora like the back of their hand, which plants were nutritious, which were medicinal, and most importantly, which were poisonous. This botanical knowledge was passed down through generations and was absolutely essential for their survival. But they also craved protein. Instead of hunting a massive mammoth, they would follow predators from a safe distance. Once a big cat had its fill and left a carcass, our ancestors would move in. This is where their ingenuity shines. Without sharp tools, how did they get to the good stuff? They used what nature provided. They could use heavy, unshaped rocks to smash open bones to get to the highly nutritious marrow inside. This was a game changer. Bone marrow is a calorie-dense superfood, a vital source of energy that helped fuel their growing brains. They would also use sharp-edged rocks they found, naturally fractured by geological processes, to slice off scraps of meat left on the bone. They weren't tool asterisk makers asterisk yet, but they were definitely tool asterisk users asterisk. This scavenging strategy allowed them to access high-quality food without the immense risk of a direct hunt. It was a low-risk, high-reward system that worked beautifully. Perhaps the most powerful survival tool they possessed was not a physical object, but a social one. The group. Living in a community was a profound evolutionary advantage. There is immense safety in numbers. A group has more eyes, ears, and noses to detect predators. A lone hominin was an easy target, but a group could create a commotion, throw rocks and sticks, and appear much more intimidating, potentially scaring off a would-be attacker. This concept, known as mobbing, is still seen in many animal species today. Within the group, they could work together to find food, care for the young, and protect the vulnerable. Cooperation was the glue that held their society together and the engine of their survival. This social structure was complex. It involved communication, empathy, and shared knowledge. Older, more experienced individuals could teach the younger generation where to find safe water, which plants to eat, and how to avoid danger. Caring for sick or injured members wasn't just an act of compassion. It was a strategic investment in the group's collective strength. Every individual had a role to play. The bonds they formed were their ultimate life insurance policy. Before we had weapons to protect us, we had each other. This deep-seated need for community and cooperation is a legacy that remains a core part of our humanity to this day. Let's talk about their physical attributes. While they weren't as strong as a giant bear, they had their own unique advantages. One of the most significant was bipedalism, walking on two legs. This freed up their hands to carry food, infants, and those handy, unshaped rocks we talked about. Walking upright also allowed them to see over tall grasses, helping them spot both predators and potential food sources from a distance. And while they couldn't outsprint a cheetah, early humans were built for endurance. They could walk and jog for incredibly long distances, a skill that was invaluable for foraging over large territories and tracking migrating herds for scavenging opportunities. This endurance running, or persistence hunting, would become a more prominent strategy later on. But its foundations were laid here, in the simple act of walking long and far. Their bodies were perfectly adapted to their lifestyle. Their digestive systems were flexible enough to handle a wide variety of foods, from tough roots to rich bone marrow. Their intelligence, while not at the level of modern humans, was growing. The cognitive demands of navigating a complex social world, remembering the locations of hundreds of plant species, and developing scavenging strategies all contributed to the expansion of their brains. Every challenge they overcame, every problem they solved without the aid of a spear, was another step on the evolutionary ladder. They were living proof that brains can be more powerful than brawn. So, to recap the incredible survival kit of our pre-weapon ancestors, first, they were masters of avoidance and environmental awareness. Second, they used the landscape, like trees and caves, as natural defenses. Third, they were expert foragers and clever scavengers, using found objects as rudimentary tools to access high-calorie food like bone marrow. Fourth, and most importantly, they relied on the power of the group for collective defense, shared knowledge, and mutual support. Finally, their own physical traits, like bipedalism and endurance, gave them a unique edge. It's a breathtaking story of resilience. They didn't just survive, they laid the groundwork for everything that was to come. They proved that you don't need sharp weapons when you have a sharp mind, a strong community, and an unbreakable will to live. The next time you think about human history, remember these resourceful pioneers. Their legacy isn't written in stone tools, but in our very DNA, in our social nature, our adaptability, and our incredible capacity to solve problems. They are the unsung heroes of our species. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button, subscribe for more adventures into the past, and share your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.